The number nobody printed about Alex Eala. Everybody in the Philippines is celebrating the wrong number. This week, 3 numbers got attached to Alex Eala's name in every headline on Earth. 20, 8, 15 million. Her new ranking, the places she jumped, the pesos she banked. And I need to tell you something that is going to sound insane given how good this week was for her. 2 of those 3 numbers barely matter. There is a 4th number, one that never made a single headline, and that number is the actual reason her career is about to accelerate faster than anything that just happened in Washington. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why, and you'll be able to predict what her ranking looks like by the time the US Open starts, using nothing but arithmetic the broadcasters never explain. Here's the part that should really bother you. The system that just rewarded Alex Eala with the best week of her career is the exact same system that punished her, brutally, for playing good tennis just 5 months ago. Same machine, same rules. 2 completely opposite outcomes. And if you don't understand why, you are going to misjudge everything that happens to her for the rest of this season, including whether she can actually crack the top 10 before the year is out. So stick around, because I'm going to show you the one piece of math every tennis insider uses that almost nobody outside the sport has ever heard of, and then I'm going to use it to make a real prediction about where this goes next. Before we get into any of that, if you care about the Philippines' rise on the world sporting stage, hit subscribe now, because this channel breaks down exactly what's happening behind these headlines every single week, and you don't want to miss where this story goes next. The week that broke the internet. Let's start with the scale of what actually happened, because even the people reporting on it undersold it. This time last year, Alex Eala was the 65th best tennis player alive. A solid tour professional. The kind of player only hardcore fans could name. Go back one more year to the start of the 2025 season, and she was ranked 130th in the world. A level where you can lose money in some weeks just from the cost of travel and coaching alone. By the end of 2025, she had climbed all the way to a career high of 50, finishing the season with a 40-26 win-loss record and cracking the top 100 for the first time as a Filipina. Then this year kept going. February 2026, she breaks into the top 40. March. A run to the 4th round at Indian Wells pushes her to a career high of 29. And then, on the 1st of August this year, in the rain-delayed final of the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, she comes back from a set down to beat the world's 3rd-ranked player, Jessica Pegula, 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. That win made her the first Filipino man or woman ever to win a WTA Tour-level singles title. It pushed her ranking from 28 up to a career high of 20, an 8-place jump in a single week, and it handed her $252,000 in prize money, more than 15 million pesos, in one afternoon. 110 places climbed in 19 months. From a player nobody outside the sport could name, to a player the entire country is now organizing its evenings around. That's the part everyone reported. Here's the part almost nobody explained properly. Because the number 20 is not a score. It's a door. And the 15 million pesos, as strange as this is going to sound, might be the smallest thing she actually won in Washington. To understand why, you need to understand how this ranking system actually works, because it isn't a leaderboard. It's a machine, and this time last year, that machine was eating her alive. The bucket with a hole in it. Everyone treats the WTA ranking like a scoreboard. Highest number wins, add points, watch it go up. That's exactly why almost everyone misreads it. Here's how it actually works. A player's ranking is built from her results at a maximum of 18 tournaments, her best 18 results, essentially, with points awarded based on the level of the event and how far she advances. A small tournament win is worth a little. A deep run at a major is worth a lot. Now add the detail that changes everything. It's a rolling 52-week system. Your ranking isn't a savings account, quietly growing every time you deposit points. It's a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Every single week, whatever you earned on that exact week 1 year ago disappears. Gone, expired, and whatever you earn this week gets poured in. The number next to a player's name isn't a measure of how good she is. It's a measure of how good she's been over precisely the last 52 weeks, recalculated every Monday, forever. Now watch what that machine did to Eala when she was improving, because this is where it gets genuinely brutal, and it happened just 5 months ago. In March 2026, at the massive Indian Wells tournament, Eala reached the round of 16. A strong, career-best result that pushed her to a new career-high ranking of 29. She then went straight to Miami and reached the round of 16 there as well. 2 elite tournaments back-to-back, 2 strong runs. Her ranking dropped. Not slightly, she fell to around 45. Here's why. The previous year, in March 2025, she had reached the semifinals in Miami as a player ranked outside the top 100. The run that made her famous, where she beat a run of seeded, high-ranked opponents. That was an enormous points haul. And in 2026, in that exact week, those points expired. The round of 16 she just fought for wasn't big enough to replace the semifinal run she was losing. She played better tennis, and the scoreboard punished her for it. That is the single most misunderstood thing about how these rankings work, and it's exactly why the people inside the sport almost never talk about a player's ranking. They talk about what she's defending. Ask any coach how a player's season is going, and they won't quote you a number. They'll tell you what she has to protect. To understand the scale of the currency here, the tournament Eala just won in Washington, the DC Open, is a WTA 500 event. The champion earns 500 points. The tournament she moved on to immediately after, the Canadian Open in Toronto, is a WTA 1000. The champion earns 1000. Grand Slams sit above both. That's the ladder, 500s, then 1000s, then the majors. Put her season against that ladder and her real trajectory looks less like a straight line and more like a staircase full of trapdoors. She's already fallen through 2 of them this year, which is exactly why the number everyone is celebrating right now needs a second look. Because once you actually know how to read a WTA ranking, you can see the part of this jump that nobody reported. The number nobody printed. Here's the number that never made a single headline. 80. Between right now and the end of the US Open, Alex Eala has roughly 80 ranking points left to defend. For scale, the title she just won in Washington was worth 500. The tournament she's playing right now, the Canadian Open, hands its champion 1000. And the entire 6-week stretch that decides the back half of her season, Toronto, Cincinnati, and the US Open combined, is protecting a total of around 80 points. Translate that into the bucket with a hole in it. Idea from a minute ago. For the rest of the summer, that hole is basically sealed shut. Almost everything she earns from here forward, she keeps. Now here's why that's so rare at her level, because this is the asymmetry the broadcast graphics never show you. Think about who's around her in the rankings. Most players in the top 20 got there by performing well last summer, which means they're walking into Toronto and Cincinnati this year carrying hundreds, sometimes over 1,000, points from 12 months ago that are about to expire. For them, this stretch is purely defensive. A quarterfinal isn't progress. It's treading water. A second-round loss can cost them 10 places. Eala walks into the same tournaments owing the system about 80 points. 2 wins in Toronto, and she's already improved on everything she's defending through the end of the US Open. 2 wins. And this isn't theoretical, it's already playing out. Last year, in her Canadian Open debut, she lost in the very first round to Marketa Vondrousova. That result is now gone from her total. This year, she's seeded 25th at the same event, meaning she skipped the first round entirely with a bye straight into the second round. Before she'd hit a single ball in Toronto this year, she'd already matched or improved on last year's result there. So hold this question in your head for the rest of the video. If you just jumped 8 places in 1 week, and for the following 6 weeks you can only lose about 80 points while 1,000 more sit on the table at your very next event, where exactly is your ceiling? Now let's go back to the first claim I made at the top, the one about 20 being a door, not just a ranking, because this is where it actually pays off. The door. In tennis, the number next to your name doesn't just describe you. It physically reshapes the tournaments you play because of something called seeding. At the biggest events, the top players in the draw, usually around the top 32, are seeded. And seeding does 2 enormous things for you. The first is arithmetic. Seeded players at WTA 1000 events like Toronto often get a bye straight into the second round. That's exactly what happened to Eala this week. No Monday match, no Tuesday match, a free pass into the second round. 1 fewer match on tired legs. 1 extra day of recovery after a final that got pushed to Monday by rain. The second matters even more: protection. If you're unseeded, The draw can do almost anything to you. You could be playing the best tennis of your career and still get handed the world number 2 in the first round. It happens constantly, and it has stalled plenty of careers. Seeded players are kept apart from each other in the bracket by design. So the gap between being ranked 33 and being ranked 20 isn't really 13 spots. It's the difference between a draw that can ambush you in round 1 and a draw that gives you 2 or 3 matches to find your rhythm before anything serious arrives. That's the door. And she walked through it in the exact week the North American hardcourt swing began, roughly 5 weeks before the US Open. That timing isn't luck, but it's close to it. Stack the two things together and look at where she's actually standing this morning. Seated at the biggest events on tour for the first time in her career, getting buys, getting protected draws, while carrying only around 80 points of debt into a stretch of tournaments worth thousands. The ranking isn't the real story here. The ranking is just the receipt. Which brings us to the 15 million pesos, and to what might be the most misleading number of the entire week. The smallest thing she won. 15 million pesos sounds enormous, and I want to be careful here, because in a Philippine context that is a genuinely life-changing amount of money. This isn't a number to wave away. But here's the precise claim. That check is the least valuable thing Alex Eala won in Washington. Not the second least. The least. And it isn't close. Here's how you can tell. According to WTA figures, her prize money for 2026 alone, even before the Washington title, had already climbed past $1.28 million. And after the DC Open when her season total moved past $1.5 million. Her total career prize money, stacking up multiple seasons, now sits well north of $2.5 million. 1 week accounted for a meaningful slice of an entire career's earnings. Most people hear a number like that and think, great, she's finally getting paid. That reaction is the mistake because prize money in professional tennis is actually the smallest revenue line in a successful career. It's just the one everyone quotes because it's public and easy to print. Endorsements, appearance fees, equipment and apparel deals, and long-term brand partnerships routinely dwarf prize money for players who become culturally significant. What Alex Eala won last week wasn't just a check. It was a market. To understand the size of what just opened up, the Philippines has over 110 million people, with one of the most passionately engaged sporting cultures on the planet. Historically, almost all of that passion has flowed toward basketball. Not some of it, almost all of it. That's 110 million people with an enormous capacity for collective devotion, plus a massive global diaspora, and until very recently, no real reason to care about a tennis racket. That isn't a fan base. That's a market that had never been opened. And here's the thing about brand economics that makes this so much bigger than one trophy. Advertisers don't pay for winners, there are dozens of those. They pay for attention that can't be bought anywhere else. Filipino attention at this scale, in this sport, essentially didn't exist as something brands could purchase before. Now it does, and effectively one person controls access to it. You could watch the market react in real time. Within 24 hours of the final point, brands across the Philippines flooded social media, not just her existing sponsors, but companies with no prior connection to her at all, publishing celebration graphics and custom designs built around her win. Marketing commentators pointed to it as a textbook case of a brand attaching itself to a moment the public genuinely cares about. Companies with zero stake in tennis decided that associating with Alex Eala was worth their advertising slot for the day. That's not affection. That's evaluation. It didn't stop at the private sector either. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. publicly congratulated her within hours of the win, saying the entire nation was behind her. In the Senate, more than a dozen senators filed individual resolutions honoring her, an unusually large response, and the chamber ultimately adopted a joint resolution unanimously, commending her as the first Filipino ever to win a WTA Tour-level singles title. The House of Representatives passed its own resolution the same week. Formal government documents entered into the national record because a 21-year-old won a tennis tournament. And then there's confirmation from the sport itself, which arguably matters more than any of it. The WTA had already added a Philippine stop to its calendar earlier this year. The Philippine Women's Open, a WTA 125 event held in Manila in January, the first WTA tournament ever played on Philippine soil. That decision was made on the strength of her 2025 breakout season, before Washington ever happened. Governing bodies don't add tournaments as thank you notes. They add stops where they believe the audience and the money already exist. The WTA looked at what she was generating and made a permanent scheduling decision on the strength of it, months before this title even arrived, which tells you the market had already priced her correctly before the rest of the country caught up this week. So here's the analogy I keep coming back to. Prize money pays you for last week. A market pays you for the next 10 years. Alex Eala won both in Washington, and her entire country spent the week talking about the smaller one. Even the woman she beat in the final understood which one mattered more. Jessica Pegula, the world number 3, stood there with the runner-up trophy and told the Filipino fans in the crowd that they were helping grow the sport of tennis worldwide. The world number 3 in a losing speech naming the actual asset in the building. So that's the theory, a ranking that's a launchpad rather than a reward, and a paycheck that's the smallest prize in the room. Now let's look at the evidence that the market is pricing her correctly. The proof that this isn't a fluke. 9 wins, for losses. That's Alex Eala's career record against top 10 players. Now here's the part that should stop you. 7 of those 9 wins happened in 2026 alone. Sit with that because it might be the single most revealing statistic in this whole story. Across her entire career before this season, against the best 10 players in the world, she'd won twice. This year, she's done it 7 times. That's not a gradual trend line. That's a break in the curve. And the names aren't soft. Her top 10 victims this year include Iga Swiatek, Elena Rybakina, Coco Gauff, and Jasmine Paolini, former world number 1s and Grand Slam champions, the current elite of the sport. Her win streak against top 10 opponents currently sits at 5 matches in a row. Now look at the quality of the week that actually produced this ranking jump, because a 500-level title can sometimes be won softly if seeds withdraw or the draw opens up. That is not remotely what happened here. Round of 32. Zhang Qinwen, the reigning Olympic gold medalist. Eala drops the first set before winning in 3. Round of 16. Leylah Fernandez, the tournament's defending champion. Straight sets. Quarterfinal. Alina Svitolina, the second seed and world number 10. Straight sets. Semifinal. Naomi Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion. Straight sets. Comfortably. Final. Jessica Pegula, world number 3. A come-from-behind win, 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. An Olympic champion, a defending champion, a top 10 player, a 4-time major winner, and the world number 3 in 6 days in her tournament debut. And one detail from inside that final tells you it wasn't close to a fluke. In a match won largely on the strength of Eala's serve, she dramatically outperformed Pegula, a player known for her reliability on serve, on first serve points won. That's the phase of tennis where the server is supposed to be nearly untouchable, and Eala had the clear edge. This isn't just a statistic anymore, it's a repricing, and it hasn't gone unnoticed by people who've actually been at the top of this sport. Public commentary from respected figures in tennis, including former world number 1 Andy Roddick, has shifted from asking whether Eala can produce one great tournament to asking whether she can sustain this level week after week, the exact question that separates a breakout run from a permanent top 10 contender. Legends of the sport, from Rafael Nadal to Martina Navratilova to Boris Becker, publicly congratulated her this week. For independent signals, the statistics, the quality of the draw she beat, the analyst class, and the legends of the game all pointing at the same conclusion. Running the numbers forward. So let's make a real projection using nothing but the arithmetic we've already built. Roughly 80 points to defend through the end of the US Open. 1,000 points available at the Canadian Open in Toronto, where she's already through her first match unbeaten this week. Another huge event in Cincinnati right after that, where she's again defending next to nothing. If she goes deep in just one of those 2 tournaments, cracking the top 15 before the US Open begins isn't an optimistic scenario. On the current math, it's closer to the base case. Here's a piece of arithmetic worth sitting with. 2 years ago, she opened a season ranked 130th in the world. Today, she's 20th. That's 110 places in 19 months, against increasingly difficult opponents on an increasingly demanding schedule. players don't usually climb that fast unless they were significantly underrated to begin with, which raises an uncomfortable question about where she actually belongs right now, and whether even the top 20 undersells her. And here's a smaller detail, but one I like even more. Jessica Pegula won her own first career WTA title in Washington, back in 2019. 7 years later, she walked onto that same court as the world number 3 and handed over somebody else's first title in the very building where her own career took off. Where this stands right now. So let's go back to the question this whole video has been building toward. 20, 8, 15 million. Which one actually matters? None of them. The number that matters is 80. 20 tells you where she's been. 8 tells you how fast she got there. 15 million tells you what 1 week was worth. All 3 of those numbers describe the past. 80 is the only one that describes what happens next. The ranking points she has left to defend between now and the end of the US Open. 2 wins in Toronto and she's already cleared it. Everything after that is pure accumulation at tournaments worth 1,000 points each, at the exact moment she's figured out how to beat the top 10 players in the world 5 times in a row. That's why the celebration this week has been slightly off target. The Philippines threw a party for a trophy. What she actually acquired was position, and in a rolling 52-week system, position is worth far more than any single title. And there's a bigger version of that same point. Tennis produces great players constantly. What it almost never produces is a player whose success opens a door instead of just adding one more name to an already crowded leaderboard. A new top 20 player doesn't change the WTA. It changes a bracket. A market of over 110 million people previously untouched by this sport absolutely changes the WTA, which is exactly why brands with no connection to tennis publish celebration graphics within hours, and why the tour was already building a home tournament around her before this week even happened. That's the real thing she banked in Washington. Here's where it stops being theory because the test started almost immediately. 2 days after lifting that trophy, she walked onto a court in Toronto against Alicia Parks, the same American who beat her in the first round of the Australian Open back in January, after Eala had raced out to an early lead and then fell apart. If she gets through that stage of the draw, she could run into Linda Noskova, the reigning Wimbledon champion, one of the very few players who has beaten her twice this season. So look at the position one more time. Roughly 80 points to lose, 1,000 sitting on the table right in front of her, and both of the players who've previously ended her tournaments waiting somewhere in the same half of the draw, in the very first week she's ever been ranked inside the top 20. 2 years ago, this exact math would have been a trap. Today, it might be the best position any 21-year-old in this sport has been in for a very long time. If you want to watch this career curve bend in real time, rather than read about it 3 days late, subscribe now because I'll be back after every match from here through New York, breaking down the ranking, the points defended, the points gained, and the whole picture one tournament at a time.